make it happen when I want to. So I'm busy doing other stuff.
He's in his new location, so he's still getting stuff, I think, situated in his new location that I think he's been in for less than a month now. Is that right, Lynn?
Yeah, August 2nd was our first day here. We had our first belt ceremony, and we're completely moved in, but there's just a lot of cosmetic stuff I'm finishing. Right now I'm getting the visualization poster stuff all set up for later on today, so that we can have all those stuff we get here for the October 11th graduation and 12th seminar.
Okay, awesome. Are you situated where you can talk for a few minutes now?
Yeah.
Or do you want us to come back to you?
No, if I'm on, I'm on. What do you got?
Okay, he's getting to his desk. There he is.
The thing is, I'm always on the meeting, but I'm doing work while the phone's in my pocket and I'm listening.
Yeah. So Lynn, the first thing is don't ever do that again.
Fair enough.
Sit at your desk, take notes, be engaged, and if you're unable to be engaged, then don't show up.
Okay.
No. And by the way, I'm dead serious about that for everybody. Is multitasking is bullshit. So in nothing that's important should you ever multitask. I make every effort short of, my 11-year-old called me a few minutes ago from his lunch hour, but I make every effort to ignore phone, text, message, when anybody else is here at the house. The housekeeper was here yesterday. The office door is locked and closed. And what we do find with a fair number of these training sessions is we'll have the conversation 3 times. And if you don't take notes, review the notes and take action plans from the notes, it's just entertainment. And there's really more entertaining things to do. I can recommend a couple of really good movies that are out right now. The Hollywood movie with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio sure the hell beats sitting here for an hour and a half. So not to beat you up, Lynn, we appreciate you showing up for today, but don't do that. You're never so busy. And by the way, any one of us, if we had a student who had those stupid Century Pro pants with a pocket in the back, and they came in and they had their cell phone in there and they had their AirPod in their ear and they were listening to a podcast while we were trying to teach them class, we would have a shit fit, right? See, it's exactly the same thing. On our video meetings, you want to do the bow at the floor, clear the mind of all distractions, turn off the damn phone, lock the office, have a blank legal pad, and be 100% focused. Otherwise, the other thing that happens is something will be mentioned that is relevant and important to you, but when you're multitasking, you miss it, and then don't think to chip in and ask about it. So again, I appreciate your contribution today, Lynn, and I don't mean to beat you up, but for everybody, do not show up at the meeting when you're in the car. These video meetings do not work on a cellular connection. Do be at your desk with a blank legal pad. Do come prepared with notes, and beforehand, we really appreciate in the discussion forum, posting what you're working on, posting what your results are, posting anything that is something that you need help with. Because what always happens for Master Smith, Mr. Dunn, Master Moody, and Master Smith is we go through there ahead of each of these meetings. And I always have agenda. We have a rotating curriculum if you're not aware. However, we always start with trying to clear through whatever the significant and major points are in the discussion forum, so we get to that first. And again, nobody ever be shy about raising your hand and not raising your hand, about jumping in there right away. But Master Smith, you wanted to discuss kickathons for some reason. So what were we trying to accomplish with kickathons?
Well, I had several members and wanted to know how you did a kickathon, and if you've never done one as a fundraiser and know how they work. So since Lynn just did one, I thought he would be a good opportunity to tell everybody about it for a few minutes.
Sure, Lynn, the kickathon you did, it was for what purpose?
We've been doing kickathon since we opened about 30 years ago, and so every year around this time, we encourage everybody to come in. We try to get 100 people to kick 1,000 times each. So it's 100,000 kicks for the community. And everybody goes get sponsors, $5, $10 here and there. We give out trophies to the people who bring the most money in. We've done it for different organizations over the past, but for the last like 5 or 6 years, we started to use the money that comes in to fuel food drives and coat drives that we've been using to help with the local schools and stuff. So that's basically where it's at.
Okay, and who are you trying to raise money for?
Right now it's food for we have like 5 food pantries that every year our food drive fuels. So we just buy like $1,000 worth of food there. And then we have, there's a local organization that does toys for homeless kids in our area as well. So we do a toy drive for them as well.
Okay.
And other things too, just throughout the year to help out people in the community in small ways.
Good, good. How much money did you raise for those charities this year?
$3,400 this year.
Okay, okay. Aside from the obvious valuable benefit of giving them some money, what were some of the valuable aspects for both your student body, but then for the school?
Well, I mean, it's the Black Belt goal setting season. So by making, first of all, 1,000 kicks isn't a big deal. I'm sure anybody that's on this conference would do 1,000 kicks just in a class,
Sure.
But just the idea and concept for newer people specifically that, wow, 1,000 kicks, you're going to go to school and tell people you did 1,000 kicks to raise money for charity. It's a big motivating factor, but then we take the 1,000 kicks and relate that to Black Belt, and we take the 100 kick intervals that we do, and we compare those to the colored belts along the way to, again, just recapture the whole spirit of long-term goal setting, short-term goal setting, and taking down piece by piece, just to kind of get them in that mindset as we start talking about Black Belt renewal season and stuff like that.
Okay, okay. Do you do anything productive as far as getting local and regional publicity on it?
Yeah, we had a bunch of stuff there. We had representation from the 2 cities that we're in the middle of. We had a dentist that had a bunch of free toothpaste and stuff to counteract the donuts that the Gourmet Donuts gave us and the coffee. And we had a bunch of people there, and there was a bunch of people there. It led to a lot of good publicity. It was in the center of this new plaza, which is good too. We always did this in a public place. We used to do it in a shopping mall. Then we did it in a park for a while. But now that we moved to this plaza, on a Sunday, there's hundreds of people going to that grocery store. So everybody's stopping and looking. So honestly, it was really just a nice way to let people know that there's a karate place that just opened up here. Signs everywhere.
Right, right. And Joseph, I see you're on here with us as well. You did a similar event with pretty good results, didn't you?
It was a little while back, and I picked out the right people to abdicate to and let them run with it. Here in Texas, we had a police detective who knew everybody in town, so we had dunk tanks and a bounce house and everything else you could imagine. And the people really got behind it. They went to their employers and got contributions to be auctioned. Honeywell gave us the television. One of the members gave us a whole bunch of sports memorabilia, which neither you nor I have any concept of how much it cost, since you or I are not into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was auctioned off probably for much less than it was worth. And but we raised a good chunk of money for the family. We had a family in the school who was $25,000 behind on medical bills after their insurance.
Right. So you were raising money for one of the students and getting all of your students engaged with that.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding, outstanding. How much money did you raise, by the way?
Our goal was 25, and we got 25 between the 4 schools, the auctions, the T-shirt sales, everything. And again, I didn't want to be the guy who was pushing people to give money. So I let, like I said, here in Texas, one particular student do all the work. And we pretty much, and one of the students in the Illinois area came up with the idea for the Kickathon and brought it forward first. And so they did a lot of the push there.
Right. Right. Very good. So, on this subject, let's segment it into 3 different categories. And one of the things, and I want this to come across in the right spirit, any and all activities that you're doing is completely appropriate necessary, and should be in your mind at all times. That it is at least in part about getting publicity for your program, your school, what you do. And it's at least in part about sharing more broadly in your community the value that you bring to the table for your students, right? And if you aren't sold that you're an incredible asset, benefit, and bring a dramatic amount of value to each and every community member that you impact, then fix your program, right? But what happens a lot of times with stuff like this is we'll categorize and we'll say, well, we're doing this thing to raise money, so we don't want to look like we're trying to get press for ourselves, right? Or we're doing this to raise money, so we don't want to use it as necessarily as a retention and an engagement tool for our students. Well, all of these things, you want it to be each of those boxes get ticked, right? Master Smith, as you know, we did the walk and or kickathon stuff for years. A lot of times it was a walk, but it's all the same format. But we did PSAs, and we did video PSAs, we did audio PSAs, we did written PSAs, PSA mean public service announcements. We got all the local TV, cable to cover and promote it for us. We got local radio to promote it and cover for us. We got TV and radio to come out the day of the event. We did public service announcements and press releases to all of everything from little high school papers to the major daily newspapers, and also worked on big corporate engagement as well. But so one of the things I didn't hear much from either one, although I know you probably did more of it than you said, is making sure that everyone in the community, meaning the 5 or 7 mile radius around you, knows that you're doing it, knows what the cause is, knows that your student body is chipping in to do this exciting thing, and use each and every one of these opportunities as a massive push for free press, right? The second element of it is that your own internal student body. And again, one of the things that we've done going back, 35 years, is we've always required our black belts to turn in a community service project in order to test, right? And one of the things that we then started requiring of all the advanced students is to be actively involved with one or another community service project, and the walk or the kickathon that we did would be one of the things that would qualify for it. But then we would also assign a black belt who was testing to 2nd or 3rd degree to be in charge of coordinating and to be in charge of organizing and developing. So what happens then is one of the things you focus your students on is that a requirement as you move up into rank is to be involved in the community. Certainly, and by the way, we very quickly figured out we had to say it wasn't that they were required to raise $200, let's say, because we would have a number of the parents who would just write a check for $200 and they're done and they have learned nothing. But it was, if it's fundraising, they have to go out, knock on doors, do it themselves, document the amount of effort and time they put in, not just have dad or grandparent write a check. But so think about what these elements are. One element is as a benefit to you and for the school, but also as a benefit for the event, is massive publicity, and the massive publicity designed to drive traffic. One of the things that we do now, I refer to as the Children's Hospital flyer. And the evolution of it was, back when I first were doing these walks, it was originally for Project Concern International, then it was for Chuck Norris's Kick Drugs Out of America, is we were doing 16-page newsprint flyers for the event, printing in excess of 100,000. I think one time we printed 250,000 of them. And what we would do is distribute those throughout all the public schools. So we would get permission from the ad building, one thing or another. The reason that we would get permission is a 100% charitable activity, 501(c)(3). So we would get permission to distribute it. Now, what those flyers were in reality, if they were 16 pages, we had 8 pages that were various promotional materials for the martial arts schools, 8 pages that were solicitation for them to participate in the kickathon or the walkathon, right? Now, over the years, newsprint started to get pretty expensive. And so we ended up just shifting the idea to, a 2-sided 8.5 by 11 flyer where the charity shifted to the local children's hospital. And the children's hospital idea, the idea is it's a $29 donation or a $49 donation. They get 4 or 5 weeks of lessons in the uniform. And then the same thing, we can print those. Here we can print them in lots of, say, 100,000 and get them distributed down directly through all the public schools, get them distributed through all the private schools, and also get them on pizza boxes and in the bag at grocery stores and in the bag at the McDonald's drive-thru, in the bag at the Wendy's drive-thru, et cetera, right? So if you're going to do a kickathon like this, one of the things you want to do, go ahead.
I was going to share one of the flyers. I think we copied this one from you.
Yeah.
This was for Japan when they had the flood in Japan.
The tsunami thing.
Relief. This is the exact copy from one that you did.
Yeah.
This was like years ago, so I just pulled the first one up that I found. In fact, these are your testimonials.
Exactly. Of people who haven't been around in about 20 years.
Yeah, right. So why would I go get new ones?
By the way, that was the first one that made Tom Callis's head explode.
Well, this one was the reason I just used this one. I mean, I have some fancier ones that I use, but this one I use because then my guys, if they've got one that they can do quickly, it's in Word. I normally use InDesign and fancy graphics, but this one's in Word. And I think we've got this on the member site, something like this. But then in Word, they can really quickly go, oh, here's the charity, fill in the blank, fill in the, the box here, with the charity content, fill in the stuff, and then boom, they've got a charity flyer.
Yeah, and the original version of that one had the charities, which was God, what's their name? They were very active in. It wasn't Red Cross. It was the other one.
Project Action was the one your mom did, wasn't it? Project Action.
No, I forget the charity, but we had an 8.5 by 11 flyer that described how the money was being spent and what the charity was. So the original version of that, the back side was their internal or their material about their charity. Yeah, I like that better.
Yeah, the back side is a bunch of testimonials.
Yeah.
And then it says something about the charity at the bottom. Yeah. This was a Soldiers Angels one because one of my guys liked the military and they were by Luke Air Force Base, so they did a charity one for the back. Yeah,
I may be thinking of the one we did for the Haiti
I
deal.
kind of hate posting this one because it's so lame look. I mean, it's not my normal graphic design, but it was so easy because it was on Word. So we still use this one because, again, it's just on Word. So my guys, if they've got a charity that they want to just do something with quick, they can, boom, do it.
Well, and let me explain. I mean, the reason that flyer was originally pretty non-promotional looking was to anchor in that this is a charity fundraiser, and it was to get under the radar of the public school systems.
Right.
And I don't really mean it that way, but it was to get them not to see it as a promotional tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to explain, but right there you have a couple of ideas that are pretty powerful marketing concepts. But I tied it into the kickathon or to a walkathon. But that last flyer and that concept does not need to be tied to that, right? It can be directly tied to, I'm just going to do the fundraiser by distributing these flyers, and then what that Children's Hospital flyer or whatever that charity was, the Angel thing, and again, I mean, I lose track of it because it had so many iterations. We've used it for Project Concern International, for Kick Drugs Out America, which is now Kickstart. We've used it for Children's Hospital. Master Smith, you did was it the Cancer Society?
Kick Drugs Out of, I mean, the one for our Karate Helps Kick Diabetes.
No, you had another one that was breast cancer or something.
Yeah, that was breast.
Yeah,
breast cancer.
Yeah, but we've done it for. I'm losing the name of the other charity in my mind, but for a variety of charities, But the mechanism, see, a lot of what we're going to cover here and is always the same system that you use for this marketing activity is the same system you use for this next marketing activity, same system you use for this other marketing activity. It just may be in a different place or for raising money for a different purpose or something like that. Does that make sense? So we want to always keep it simple. But right there, there's three embedded ideas. One idea is you're doing a charity fundraiser for whoever, for a child who's in need, for the local food bank, for the next disaster, heaven help us, whatever it might be, right? And when you're doing the fundraiser, kickathon or walk, what you want to do is you want to take that kickathon and walk and for your own students, use it as a character enhancement event. So we want you to be involved with the community. We want you to go and personally knock on doors and do the fundraising. If dad wants to write a check, that's great, but we want you personally to go do the work on this to understand the value. And by the way, when it's with students, I always require them to educate themselves quite a bit on what the charity is, right? Now, if it's for an individual, you know, you just talk about the individual and why they have the need. But if it's a respected charity of some sort, I want the kids to understand what and care about what they're raising money for, not just be doing it because I told them to, right? So, and then you have, so that's one aspect. The other aspect of that event is everyone in the community knowing. And you can get everyone in the community to know, and of course I'm exaggerating when I say everybody, because a lot of people aren't paying attention to anything, but you can go to charity activities and get the local radio stations to promote it, to be a media sponsor. You can release what's called public service announcements. You can go into a studio and pre-record them and give them to them. And a lot of times they'll just run it when they have unsold airtime. You can do the same thing with TV. So you can go into a video, record a video public service announcement. When they have unsold time, they'll run it for you. You can do a PSA write-up for the newspapers, big and small. You can get each of those outlets to be media sponsors, which means you print their logo on the material, and and basically when you see, you know, a fund run for the Cancer Society, you'll see all their sponsors, but all the media that's listed as sponsor, in most cases, they're not giving any money. What they're doing is they're giving airtime, and then they're getting recognition for having given airtime to promote it, right? So the next thing you can do is you can take the literature that you print up, and you can get McDonald's to do tray liners. You can get McDonald's to put them in the bags at the drive-thru. You can get Burger King, Wendy's, et cetera, to do the same thing. You could get Pizza Hut, Domino's, et cetera, to put them on the boxes for when they do delivery. You can get the local grocery stores to put them in the bags as people shop. And you can take that concept and it goes on and on and on. You can print 11 by 17 posters for the event, and you can get merchants in a 3-mile radius to all put them up in the front window. Heck, you could do rack card size, and you could have it as one other rotation in your rack cards to have them put those on the counters. And now you got rack cards promoting the charity. You got posters in their front window. And by the way, when promoting the charity, again, I always tend to like the $29. It's a month of lessons in the uniform, because the donation is designed to bring them into us, right? And by the way, Master Moody, I mentioned Tom Callis' head exploding. That was what made his head explode, was doing the 5-week or 4-week in the uniform in order to raise money for the charity, and he thought that was way too self-serving.
Really? Oh, that's just too bad.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, self-serving, what sounds like, but I think it's a thing. You were talking about the charity events. When we're doing these events like this, and I don't think it's self-serving at all, what we do is make sure that the students get a reward for being there too. So when they make a donation, we'll have we always do a ton of upgrades or renewals and enrollments that day. So if anybody's most excited about coming to an event and doing something positive for the charity or for the organization that we're working with, we'll do a ton of renewals that day. So we're not shy about doing that. And usually there's some kind of reason that they should renew that day.
Yeah.
So usually those kind of days when we'll do a kickathon or some sort of thing like this, they're huge financial days for us as well. So that we'll raise 25,000 for the charity, and then raise when they had the if this sounds self-serving, I'm sorry. We raised $40,000 when Hurricane Katrina hit for Red Cross, and that was one of our biggest record months. I think it was October. I can't remember whether it was a long time ago when Katrina hit. But that was like a record month at all the schools, because we gave them there was like a promote. If you donated to Katrina, then there was some reason. I can't remember what the reason was. They got some little benefit or something for renewing that month, because we were trying to say if you donated something, then they got something. There was some small benefit. It wasn't a big benefit. It wasn't like, anything special, but we just said, we want to reward you for helping. Is that self-serving? I don't care if it's self-serving. I mean, we raised $40,000 for Katrina for that. And then we also did an event with it. So you should be looking for opportunities there. That I can't see how that's anything but a really huge win-win for everybody.
Yeah. On all of the charity activities, my one caveat is, and it's not really a caveat, it's just an awareness. I try to, whenever possible, have the money go directly to the charity without having to go into my hands.
100%, 100%. I agree with that.
So if I can have a form they filled out with a credit card, and then I hand the stack of forms with credit card information to Children's Hospital with a clear understanding we haven't processed anything, then I'm better off. And in our case with Children's Hospital, when I handed that off, they not only processed it, but they sent them a nice personalized looking letter. And, I mean, it was nice enough to frame it if you wanted to. So there was an additional win for doing that. We still do. We have a 501c3 established, and it has a bank account, and it has IRS status and all of that. It's called KICS, Kids Involved Caring for Kids. And what we used to do is do the fundraiser. The money went into the 501c3, and then we would write the check to the charity. But there's so much fraud that goes on with all this stuff that I'm happier if the money can go, and I don't care whether I'm raising money for an elementary school or Children's Hospital or St. Jude's or, a kid who has medical expenses. I want checks written to them, not to me. I want, if it's a credit card, I'd rather have it be either they filled in the form and I gave it to a charity, or they give me a link. If you're raising money for a sick child, you could do a GoFundMe page nowadays, and it's, do the donation on their GoFundMe page and print out the receipt, and that's your proof that you did the donation. So the more you can keep from touching the money, the more you keep from having any of those questions in somebody's mind.
That's an important point.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, if I can interrupt for a second. How do you link renewals to these activities? How does that work? Like,
You're asking how I did that in that case?
Yeah. Do they do a donation and then they get a reduced renewal rate, or?
No, it would be something like, when we did Katrina, when I'm trying to remember what we did there, I think at that time we, maybe they got some extra, a t-shirt, or they got something we were giving away. We just gave them away something, something special. It was just a token so that they got to feel good about giving the donation away. But if they renewed, they got, if they renewed and gave a donation, it was kind of combined, then they got to get a benefit. We might have given them a kicking pad or something, but the renewal was like a lot of money, right? So we don't mind giving. I think we gave them now that I think about it, now let me recall, we were trying to introduce the body shields, or get them to train. I think ATA came out with these new body shield things we were doing. That's what it was. It wasn't the small square targets; they were the bigger ones, and they only cost us like $45 or $50. They weren't cheap, but they were $45 or $50. So we gave them one of those. So we had a bunch of them in the school, so they looked kind of larger. So we gave those out to them. So they weren't totally cheap, but they had to give a donation, and the donation was like usually $250. So we raised a lot of money. Well, that was 8 schools.
Yeah. Well, that was the I won't go through the story again. That was the whole Walker, Texas Rangers story, was that of being the #1 fundraiser in the country for their charity with our efforts. Hey, but to anchor in some of the marketing themes, and again, Ken, as a direct tie for renewals, I think mostly it's about getting student engagement in something more powerful than themselves, getting community outreach, having them be aware that their involvement in the school, and that your school specifically is doing a lot of community outreach, and a lot of community outreach is specifically valuable.
You know, going to Black Belt is part of our Black Belt journey is going to be community service. So we just tie that in as one of those things. But obviously the main thing when you do a fundraiser like that, and J. Joe just did his 19th annual Kickathon, his 19th annual Breakathon, which is done the same way as a Kickathon. And he gets a lot of community publicity from that. He has the fire department with their giant fire truck there with the sirens and stuff going. He's got his moon bounce. All this is out in front of his school. He's got a big, he owns his own building, and his whole front of his school, it's like 2 big soccer fields. So he has a lot of publicity from that. I think we can go on to our main topic, and I think you have something also that you want to cover, Master Oliver. You can cover yours first, or I can do the whichever.
Well, let's kind of summarize on that topic. See, the reason to do student events is to get engagement and have them be excited and have something that you can build upon. The value of it being charity related, in addition to, and I'm not minimizing that in any way, shape, or form, but in addition to raising money for a good cause, is that it's an easy way to get lots and lots and lots of free publicity. And it's an easy way to get lots and lots of other big corporate employers and big corporate people who have lots of customers and lots of activity to join with you, and for you to get massive promotion, not only for the event and the charity, but also for your school. And one way to do it is do an event, Kickathon, Breakathon, Walkathon, whatever, which is a specific day and time. So that usually has a 6 to 8 week window promotional period. And another way to do it is something like the Children's Hospital type of approach, where you're passing out flyers. Another one that I didn't touch upon a minute ago is the way we raised so much money for Chuck Norris several years in a row is we printed raffle tickets. And by the way, this is super inexpensive. There's tons of companies that do it. But we printed raffle tickets where the ticket was good for a month of lessons and uniform, $27, I think. And then it had a really big stub that, would tear off, perforated, that would have the name of the person who bought it. It would have their phone number, email address, contact information. And so we had our students all going out and selling those raffle tickets as a fundraiser with a deadline for Chuck Norris's organization. One time we raised $18,000. I don't remember what the other years were. And the only reason I remember that is I have a frame thing on the wall here about that one. But the nice thing is, it's the same idea as the Children's Hospital flyers, except that we enlisted an army of our students to go out and sell them. Then I took the same idea of the raffle book and our students selling them, and we went to local high schools, to local middle schools, to local elementary schools, and we got clubs that were looking to raise money for whatever reason, band uniforms or PTA raising money, and let them sell them. So they could go sell them for $27. They could keep the $27 as long as they gave us the stubs so we know who they sold them to, right? So now you have at least 3 different pretty powerful marketing ideas. The Children's Hospital one, years ago, I gave all that information to the Kovars. I don't know if they're still using it. I'm sure they are. But they were doing so much traffic on that, they had to start staging which schools they were distributing them at on which month. From that one idea, they were doing it for their local teen center. But that's one, is getting the flyers directly out in elementary schools, but getting other businesses to be involved. Two is doing some kind of physical activity at your school that then you get massive publicity for. The third is the selling the raffle ticket type of thing, and then getting organizations and listing them to go out and sell them. And that's where I was remembering, Master Smith, the idea from the Sterling School, where you had them actually out selling those things for you and keeping the money to raise money.
Yeah, we had booths set up at all throughout the community, and they actually set up the booth for us. And we put our posters and signs up that said for, their donation, they had a different choice of a month free of lessons. They had a free birthday party or a free martial arts pizza party. So that way they would make a donation, and then they would get we'd get their contact information, and then get them in for one of those specials.
Okay. Paul and Sue, I want you to promise me you won't get overwhelmed with volume of information today, and to jump in and ask any questions. This has all been a little off of the rest of our topic, but do you have any questions about this so far?
No, sir.
Sue, is this all making sense to you? I see Sue's here, but I don't see Sue, so.
Yeah, she was fighting with the internet provider at her home was the last text I got.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that she won that battle yet.
Yeah, I have
That's
about
a losing battle.
I have about 3 TVs on DirecTV that aren't working, and they make their customer service experience so painful that I'd rather it just not work than to call. I just haven't gotten around to canceling their ass and getting the next bad service provider. But I understand the concept. Anybody have any questions on this? Lynn, thank you for that contribution, and Joseph, thank you for that contribution. Any questions on this topic or anything else before we move forward?
Yes.
I would also add, Master Oliver, when you're doing one of these events, you said to do the charity flyer, and those are kind of different angles of it. If you are doing, let's say, an event for breast cancer, let's say, you can layer the flyers for, let's say, breast cancer research in the schools around before and then after, so that it's just less work. If you're focusing on one charity, you can just make this all kind of one big promotion for maybe a 6-week period or an 8-week period, and then these can all work together, and then it's just less work for you guys. You guys got a lot of work to do. So your event can be one thing, get people to come to the event, and then after the event for the next 3 weeks, you could still be working with all these organizations that you were trying to get flyers into to come to your event. You can then do the charity flyer after for another in the schools, let's say, for another 3 or 4 weeks after. And then you're already going to the schools to get the flyers in, follow up with going to the schools to get the flyers for them to come to your school too. So.
Yeah, and so without going too deep on this one, is Master Moody, as you well know, and Master Smith does, is we use this for the outreach with the elementary schools. So there would be a 6-week period where we were promoting for them to help us with the fundraiser. And in great part, I was getting the literature out directly into the school. Then we would have another period where we were going in and doing a PE teach for the day, getting permission slips ahead of time and doing that. Then we would have, maybe that's in the fall, next we would have the Children's Hospital flyers go out. Then we go in and do an after school enrichment program, and then the cycle would repeat, right? So, and you can add to that the carnival that they had, the field day they had, some kind of VIP coupon that went at the end of the year, at the end of the semester for good grades and good attendance and so forth. And you start layering it on, all of a sudden there was like 10 different things through the year that was going directly into the public elementary schools with very little, if any, pushback. So that's good. So anyway.
Master Oliver, I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, it's off topic, but I was just wondering what is the best way of transferring your current students to a new, more comprehensive program that you develop, considering that the new program is going to run at the same time as the current program. So I have a class, I developed a new program, and I'm going to transfer these students to the new program. Of course, with the new fee. What is the best way of doing this without losing the current students?
Okay, if I understand the question correctly, right, is let's say, and Ollie, do you have your students on a year agreement already, or are they on month to month?
It's a month to month now.
Okay, yeah, you do have to fix that, but let's say I'll just create an example. If I'm answering a question that's not what you asked, then tell me, okay? But let's say I have a whole bunch of students and they're only paying $149 a month. And now I'm going to want to renew them all. And they could be doing month to month for all I care. So they're doing month to month and they're doing a relatively low tuition rate. And now and let's assume that I don't already have a renewal program set up. Although, like in Paul's case, Paul, you have if I remember correctly, you have a black belt club. You don't have you've got a really strong leadership as an instructor development program, but you really don't have it as something that you enroll them into, right?
We enroll them into $50 a month with weapons and leadership.
Okay.
Our adult version, we don't enroll them into.
Okay. There's no reason to distinguish that, by the way. But so Ollie, you don't have that. And Paul, you're undercharging for it, okay, like by a lot. But Ollie, you don't have that. So now what we do is, let's say we go create the leadership program, and then beneath that we create the black belt program. And I'm going to say, for sake of argument, that both of them, let's say you're doing 4 years to get to black belt, both of them are 4 years, okay? And I fully understand we have some BJJ people on here who take 9 or 11 years to get a black belt. That's fine. We usually do it as, it's still a black belt program, but we only enroll them to purple belt or to blue belt. But so without me getting off track, so Ollie, what we do is we create those two programs, right? Now what we're going to do is do two things at the same time. We're going to present to all of the current students that we have this new exciting thing that we're doing, and all of the reasons why they should do the new exciting thing, okay? Plus, we're going to have a price increase for the tuition, but they get grandfathered in, so they get it at a much reduced rate since they're a longtime loyal student, okay? Right. And again, I can go through and craft all the details. We've done this hundreds of times. I'll tell you what the outcome should be. Worst case, and Ollie, how many active are you at now?
212 now.
Okay, so I'm going to round it down to 200. So out of 200, worst case, you should get 50% of your current students. Best case is probably going to be 75 or 80%. So let's say, for argument's sake, somewhere between 100 and 150 people that you get renewed into the new higher program, okay? What we want, and this is, Paul, where I'm saying you're massively undercharging, what we want is whatever the price level is on the initial enrollment, we want the leadership to be double or more what that initial enrollment monthly is, and then we want the fallback, the black belt, to be a 50% bump or a little less, right? Now, the first number is somewhere between 50% and 75 or 80% of all of those 212 students, you should be able to get renewed. Of those, I'd be surprised if a lower percent than 75% were on the higher, more expensive program, right? So what's going to happen in almost all cases is 75 or 80% of them are going to go into the higher, more expensive program or more. and 25% or less go into the less expensive fallback. I know it's counterintuitive. Most people think, well, they both get the black belt, they're going to choose the cheaper one. No, they all want the better one. So they will renew into the more expensive level. Is this making sense so far?
When you come out to Colorado and you see the uniforms, you can tell who's on the leadership and who's on the master club, you know, the higher program and the lower program. And you're going to see out there that 95% are in that leadership higher level program with the blue tops, and only about 10% or 5% are in that black top or the fallback master club program.
Yeah, and Master Smith, that gives me a good reminder, because I keep forgetting to talk about this. And I'll give you a little bit more explanation in half a second here. But we have the next quick start meeting coming up very quickly. What are the dates? I should know that, but
October
16th.
18th and 20th.
Say it again, Bob.
October 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Yeah, and this one
should come in the 17th. Everybody should come in the 17th, so they get the behind the scenes on the 17th.
Right. And so what I was going to explain is this one's going to be a little unique, because on the same weekend, the Mile High and Ripple Effect schools have an intramural tournament. The Westminster Mile High Karate School has one of its biggest live events of the year. And so what happens is you want to come in Thursday in time to be at the Thornton Mile High Karate School for the full business day, more or less. So let's say at least from 5 to 8, or, you know, from 4 to 7 or 8. And we're going to do behind the scenes at that school. Then on Friday, we'll be here at my home in Evergreen, Colorado. On Saturday, we're going to go to the intramural tournament. We're going to have lunch. We're going to go to see the live event and get some other stuff done. And then on Sunday, we'll be back here at my home. So that's one. The other thing I keep forgetting to remind everybody of is all of you who are in our mastery leadership level is we have the behind the scenes at the black belt test. It's November. So much for me being prepared. First weekend in November.
Second weekend in November.
Second weekend?
Yeah, the 8th and 9th.
There you go. So it's the 8th and 9th and 10th of November.
Which is the second weekend, because the 1st and 2nd is the first weekend.
There you go. So it's the 8th, 9th, and 10th of November. The first day, and by the way, you're welcome to come in on Thursday and visit any one of 5 schools that are all within fairly reasonable distance of where we're going to be in Estes Park. On Friday, all day, we're going to be at the Stanley Hotel. If you're not familiar with it, it's a very famous old hotel built by the creator of the Stanley steamer, hence the Stanley Hotel. And it was also the inspiration for Stephen King's book, The Shining, made into several movies, and now they have a Shining Part 2 coming out soon, including they have full ghost tours of the event if you book it in time to go. And then on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, we're behind the scenes at the Black Belt Retreat, which is at the Y Camp up in Estes Park. But anyway, so make sure you're booked for that. But Ollie, let's go back to finishing up that question. So we overlay the leadership program, we overlay the Black Belt program. With all of those 211 students, one rationale for them renewing into the new higher program is, one is you do a heavy goal setting for Black Belt. You do a heavy focus on why they want to be committed and follow through. 3 is you're going to launch the leadership and the Black Belt program at probably about half of what your regular long-term tuition is going to be at that, and grandfather them in. Now, Ollie, what have you been charging on the new enrollments?
Yeah, actually, I was going to interrupt you if you don't mind. Right now, I have different fees for different ages and different belt level, but roughly is about $150 per month. So now you're suggesting that I have to double it to $300, for example, and then grandfather the students that are already paying 150, a little bit more, but let's say about $200 per month instead of 300.
No,
My other,
no. What I'm saying is this. We're going to get you where new students are paying, say, $247 a month.
Right.
That means that the leadership program is going to be $497. That's the regular tuition. The current students who are paying $150 a month is they can do it now for, in ratio, I'm going to say $297, but you might want to launch it at, say, $247 initially. It could be a little less to get some momentum. It could be $247 and $197 if you wanted. I'd rather see be $297 and then maybe $197 as the fallback. Okay, so you're taking that double it 50% bump based upon what they're currently paying, right? Now they're all paying month to month, so your tuition on your month-to-month enrollment is going to go in 2020 to $247 a month. The leadership program is going to go to $497 a month. They can do it now for only $297 or $247 if you prefer, right? So then what happens is they're triply incentivized. One is it's an exciting new program that they want to do. And two is it gives them a chance to commit to black belt and be guaranteed there's never going to be any more rate increases. Three, they get to do it at a ridiculously inexpensive tuition level compared to where things are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense so far, Ollie?
Right. Yeah.
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 So that was still kind of the short answer, but we can flesh it out more from there as we go. But mull that over, right? Now, let me say one more thing about that is what we see is, and Paul, we talked about that. You guys did this. What we see a lot of times is people spend so much time creating what their leadership program is, they don't sell it, right? Well, what you want to do, Ali, is go get 100 of your students into the new program. Give yourself some timeline so the new program can launch January 1st. And then once you've sold 100 of them, then in January you can you can launch what the new curriculum is going to be. Don't do it backwards. Don't spend a bunch of time stressing out about what you're going to teach them. Go get them into the thing, and then we'll worry about that next.
Master Oliver, out of those 200 students, I'm only targeting 100 of them for the specific program that I have. Is for the age of 6 to 18 that, doing some life skills, character building, and some extra curriculum. Not for everyone, not for the parents or adults. Most likely are not interested in those.
No, that's wrong.
Absolutely not.
That's wrong. Yeah, everybody. If I currently had, which is what I did when I launched all this stuff, if I currently had 1,500 and they were mostly adults, I would be launching all of this character development curriculum, leadership development curriculum, everything else. If I had an adults-only MMA school that only taught Muay Thai, I'd be launching all of this on top of it. And by the way, the resources for teaching all of this to 27-year-old male who just wants to learn how to fight there's more resources for them than there is for the kids, right? So Ollie, get over that thinking that it's for all of your students. It's not just a kids deal. Okay. The more upscale your clientele is, the more they value this. For everybody, the value of mental focus, goal setting, learning how to really set goals, follow through with goals, learning emotional control, all of that is absolutely as imperative for adults as for kids. If you want to put it into a self-defense context, any of us who have been around forever is, there's legends of stories of somebody's black belt, gets attacked on the sidewalk, and they've never been taught to control adrenal stress. They've never been taught to control their focus, and they freeze up and get their ass kicked or get mugged or whatever the case might be. So the ability to perform under pressure, to control adrenal response, to control focus is a necessary element of teaching an adult self-defense. And certainly, if you have adults who want to get in shape, if they don't know how to set goals, follow incremental goals, really achieve those, they're in bad shape on that as well.
Okay.
Master Oliver, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. I just wanted to say one thing about that pricing change and the shift that you said. If you do it the way Master Oliver's talking about, these people shouldn't be agitated. This isn't you go in there and they're all going to be like freaking out because you're changing price. It's very smooth and easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, Ollie, it merits a lot of conversation and discussion for him the next couple of days. And it's probably best for you to let it sink in a little bit, and then we can start fleshing out the details. Okay.
Okay.
But
So
I'll leave you with one thing, though, is 90% of the effort is about teaching them all goal setting tied to them being a black belt and really gaining commitment to train to black belt and beyond. It's not about the cool new leadership program, right? It's about they're really going to set their goal and follow through and be a black belt. Finances is the last thing that's relevant. Is you're not going to, you don't sell anything based upon it's cheap. You will renew them because they're excited to commit, to train, to be a black belt and to follow through. And then they'll make a decision now rather than waiting because there's a financial incentive.
Mm-hmm. When Master Smith was talking about different uniforms, I understand that could make a big difference for the leadership program. They have a different uniform coming to the dojo. In my case, everyone is wearing the same color, uniform.
Currently.
Yeah, currently. So is that something you would recommend to? Because that makes a big difference.
Yes, definitely.
Well,
makes a huge difference.
I will say it this way: you can do it without it. I much prefer to have a very visible statement that they're committed to train to black belt and beyond. So in our cases, the leadership people are in blue tops, the people who are in black belt club are in black tops. And when you come to the whether it's the intramural tournament or behind the scenes of the black belt test, and you look at the floor. In fact, go on the Facebook page and look at the all the pictures. You'll see 95% of them are in the blue top, meaning they're in the leadership program. I understand fully there are some people who have organizational limitations. However, even there, I always recommend if your organization wants them to wear a certain thing at their tournaments or whatever, just get the people who go to the tournaments to have the school uniform and then the traveling uniform. So the 5% who are ever being seen by anybody else can be compliant if you have to do something like that.
Is there any other idea, just in case, in the dojo, in any other way that we distinguish them from regular to leadership without changing the color?
Yeah, but we could go on right now for another 45 minutes to an hour. So let it sit a little bit, Ollie, and then we'll spend some more time on it.
Sure.
But I would recommend, one, go look at some of the pictures of the classes to anchor it in for yourself. Number two, look at the pricing sheet that we've posted a number of times, because that's the price sheet the Mile High Schools are using. They're right now going from $247 a month to $497 for the leadership program. And then really take a look at some of those pieces. If you go to the Facebook group and type in renewal or renewal blitz, you'll see a lot of those pieces there.
It's simpler to do it that way. It's simpler to paint them in a big picture of these guys are leadership, these guys are this, these guys. It's simpler to paint their whole bodies with it.
That's right.
Yeah. It's not necessary, but it certainly helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. That was a longer explanation than I intended, but that's typical of. I can't blame anyone. That's typical of me, Master Smith, Master Moody, and Bob. So
Not me.
yeah, you're as bad as anybody. And Master Smith's the worst, but
Yeah. Well, thanks. I'm not in the worst case.
okay. Other questions before we move forward?
Master Oliver, I had a really quick question.
Go ahead.
I was curious. I've been looking for the replay of last week's call, but I haven't seen that come through yet. The last one I saw was for, let's see, it was on the 12th, but I haven't seen the one for the 19th. I was just wondering if that's going to be available soon.
Bob, can you ping Merrick and follow up on that? You're talking about last week's Quick Start meeting?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it should be up there already. So Bob will follow up for you.
All right. Thank you so much. That was my question.
Yeah,
You
we
should-
tried.
Should get it via email too.
Well, what you get is you get a link that takes you back to the website for the replay.
Mhm.
What was last Thursday's date?
It's right there.
There you go.
It's on our member site. If you go to the member site, all the meetings are there.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you so much.
And that's where we were getting ready to go next, Master Oliver. But I think we probably are going to have to do that retention folder, do the enrollment folder next week. Otherwise, the meeting will be too long today.
Okay.
People, Master
So
Smith.
you can just cover your agenda then.
Thank you. Save for the 45 minutes that we already took out of it.
Well, we have 25 minutes left.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Any other questions so far on what we've covered? Okay. What I wanted to do in part today is make sure you're prepped for all of the promotional opportunities that come with Halloween, followed by all of the promotional opportunities, and I'm not going to say all, a few of the promotional opportunities for Halloween and a few of the promotional opportunities that happen November, December, right? I don't see Scott on the meeting today, but Scott Sullivan is one that last Halloween, he generated well over, Master Smith, what was the number? Was it 250 appointments in 8 days?
Well, he had four different events going in October, and out of those four, he got over 300 appointments.
Okay, so 300.
And out of that, he got 60 something enrollments.
Okay.
And everybody should be paying attention to those numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, those are real numbers. They're accurate.
That was his first go at live events. So I think his percentages have gotten better, but it's not too atypical. I mean, it was pretty close to, we tell everybody and write these percentages down because this is probably about where you'll be, because when you do your marketing, and we have so many different marketing in that grassroots marketing section in your Quick Start program in the first weeks, when you're going through all those, each one of them, we know what the norm you should be getting on. If you get this many leads, how many appointments should you get? And from there, how many of those show up for the first intro? And from there, how many enroll? And on a live event, the typical is, and let's just say for round numbers, you get 100 leads. And remember, a lead is you've got the written slip with all of their contact information. We know out of that 100 that we should get at least 90% of those to make an appointment right there on the spot. So we don't have to go chase them later. The next percentage is what is going to be the show rate. Well, we know on 90 appointments that we're going to have out of that 90, 45 to 55 of those 90 show up for the actual intro. And then out of that intro, we know that out of 45 to 55 that we're going to have about 25 to 30 of those enroll. So those are kind of your percentages. So it's almost a 50-50 right down the line. So if I had 100, I'll get 50 to show up, and out of the 50, I'm going to get 25 to enroll. And if you can do those kind of numbers, then you can take control of how many enrollments you want to get this month. If I do 2 events and I get 100 appointments at each of them, then I know I'm going to get about 25 enrollments from each one of them. So that'll give me 50 enrollments. Now, Jan, she did some of our back to school programs, and in a 6-week period, she had 100 and if I remember the number exactly
Well,
right.
Jan's on the meeting. So Jan, let's get you and Ken specifically, if you don't mind. And I wanted to finish the thought with Scott, which is, Scott, you said he had 300 leads. That's typically going to be worst case 95%. More typically, more like 90% are going to make an appointment on the spot. That's an important component there. Then half or more of those people end up showing up to take the first intro. And half or more of those people who show up for the first intro end up enrolling. So if you take Scott's 300, that would typically be about 150 intros. Then that would be a 75 or more enrollments. Now, his enrollment numbers were a little below that. And I can tell you specifically why, is it was the first time he had ever done anything like that. He ended up swamped by drinking from a fire hose. The other thing was it was 4 Halloween week events. So all of that traffic was coming in 1 week, right? That wasn't spread out over 4 or 5 weeks. It was 2 weekends, which is why I'm saying it was 7 or 8 days. It was basically 2 weekends plus the days in between.
And I'm also going to throw in that on the 30th of September, the next day, he had a husband and wife that one was the program director, one was the instructor, and that was really his full staff because he was kind of partly, running the school. And they both didn't show up on the first and never came back after that for some reason. Yeah. So he had to start over with completely new staff also that he was training at the same time.
Well, yeah. And what everybody's message should be, if you think you can't do it, or you think these are crazy numbers, or you think anything, that's just a BS excuse, and you could do at least this good or better. That should be the message. So this number wasn't somebody that's been with us for 10 years and is an expert. These numbers are somebody who really just was starting from scratch, had bigger problems than whatever you got. He had huge problems, right? I mean, that's fair to say. Yeah. So that's the encouragement that everybody should have.
Well, he's been with us for about 18 months now. Last month he did 84,000. So,
but at that moment, what we're saying here is, and let's get on to what we're going to do in October. But at that moment, he was in he had big problems. Whatever problems you think you have, he had really big problems, and he kicks some butt. So anyway,
and he's gone from 22,000 a month to 84,000 in the last 18 months.
And of course, he, when this all happened, he contacted us and we set up a plan and he implemented it. So if you find yourself in any kind of situation, we're always there to pull you out of it.
Okay, Ken. Do we still have Ken? Where's Ken?
Ken and Jan.
Yeah. Okay, Jan. We may have lost Ken. Jan, how many enrollments did you do in August and September?
This year or last year?
Both.
Okay.
Let's start with last year since
last year was better than this year so far. So last year we got 100 total August and September from the school, mostly from the school orientations.
Okay. And then what were you at this year so far?
This year, I just asked Rachel. Last month we got 59 signups, and then so far this month only 23. But Rachel's been out. We've had a lot of same thing. Personal stuff. We were closed for a week with the hurricane. Rachel was sick. Yeah, I was out. My dog died. Misha was out.
Well, still in that 6-week period, you're still looking at almost 90 enrollments. So I don't think anybody's going to complain about that.
Oh yeah, they wanted to be at 150, but
This is to beat our record.
Yeah.
Last year you were 120 in a 6-week period. Was that the right number?
100.
100.
Okay.
Okay. And then we lost Ken. So, Ken, if you're there, speak up. But Ken's number was approximately, and again, for everybody, I recommend you go in and search through the group and look at these examples we're giving you because they're in there. The example for Jan, we did a recording last year right after you had done those two, and the video frozen at what you consider to be a non-flattering moment in time. But by the way, you know, me too, any and all of them. But we did 2 of these meetings where we walked through specifically what you did last August and September, which is the top 2 videos on the Quick Start member site. In Ken's case, we had been talking about doing these kind of live events and so forth. And the first time he ever went out and did a movie theater promotion, it was for the Avengers Endgame movie. And for the Avengers Endgame movie, if I remember the numbers right, and these are more or less right, again, you can go, you know, look them up at the Facebook group. He did about 300 appointments the first weekend.
It was 220. I remember the numbers.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So he did 220 the first weekend, and then hadn't planned to go back the second weekend until I gave him a tongue lashing. And he went back the second weekend, and the second weekend, I believe it was 150. Does that sound right, Master Smith?
Yes, that's correct on the second weekend.
Okay, so
it was over the 300 something,
370.
almost 400 in just 1 week in essence, because it was one weekend on top of the other weekend.
Yeah, exactly. 2 weekends back to back. And again, the ratio, and again, there is the drinking from a fire hose overwhelm that happens the first couple times you do this. But the ratio should be 80 or 90% of people that are at the booth make an appointment on the spot. Half or more show up, half or more enroll. We've seen it as much as 75 or 80% show up, and as much as 75 or 80% enroll. There's a little bit of an inverse correlation, though. The more hammered you get at the booth, and the faster you're moving, the less rapport building you're getting, those show and enrollment rates do fall a little bit, right? And sometimes a slower event, I only made 30 appointments for the weekend, but all of a sudden I get 22 of them to show up. Sometimes that's the way that thing works. So the short part of this conversation is coming up at all through October, but certainly tied to Halloween. There are pumpkin patch type of places where people come out and they pick their own pumpkin. We have a big one here, does huge traffic. There's corn mazes. There's
hay rides, haunted houses.
Yep. Harvest festivals. There's all kinds of stuff that's either fall and harvest related or Halloween related that create huge activity where you can go out and create traffic like this, right? Then what happens next is the big blockbuster movies tend to historically have been summer blockbusters and Christmas blockbusters, Thanksgiving to Christmas. Disney, aka Marvel, has changed the dynamic to some extent. So a lot of their big blockbusters have been in the spring, aka Avengers Endgame and the Spider-Man movie. Well, Spider-Man was Sony, but anyway. But what you look at is for the movie theater thing to work, you want to have a big blockbuster in order to drive traffic, and you want to have a theater that's a busy theater, right? So it's a big AMC, it's a big Regal, it's one of those. Now, setting those things up is super easy. People think that it's difficult, but at least in the United States, this sadly does not apply to Canada, but in the United States, National Cinemedia, NCM, controls almost 90% of the screens in the United States. So all you have to do is go to them and tell them you want to do a tabling for whichever theater you're targeting. And if you want to check out the theaters that they have in their system, go to ncm.com, and there's a theater locator based upon, you just put zip code in or whatever, and there's a map and it'll show you which theaters they have. Now, if you happen to be out at the big AMC theater for the next Star Wars movie that's coming out this holiday, or Frozen that's coming out this holiday, and there's some others that I'm not top of head on, but if you were out there for Frozen or out there for Star Wars, the biggest numbers I've ever heard was actually in Texas, was 850 leads in 2 weekends for the Star Wars opening. So if you were there for Star Wars or you were there for Frozen or whatever the other big blockbusters going to be Thanksgiving to Christmas, that's a huge amount of traffic. And by the way, most people think that November, December are slow. Doesn't have to be slow at all. We're going to talk about having your best cash month of the year in November, December, but to have huge enrollments in December, plus have huge enrollments in January, February, the movie theater is one way. For October, and I don't know as though there's any blockbuster movies coming out in October. Matt Smith, you and I are the two movie buffs. Are there any big?
Maleficent was the one movie. I think that's October, isn't it? And that's got a pretty good projected blockbuster, and it's after Abominable. So if that happens to do well, then that might work.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
Joker is coming out.
Well,
and that might be like the Batman one that was kind of the evil Batman that might not be as kid friendly.
Well, it doesn't have to be kid friendly. Joker is going to be huge.
That's going to be huge.
Yeah, Joker is going to be huge. And my 11-year-old and all of his 11-year-old buddies are queued up. Can't wait for that one. So I'll give you anecdotal evidence that it's going to be huge. And by the way, the reviews so far, even though it's a DC movie, have been great. So so that one should be really good. When does Joker come out?
It's in October. I'm not sure the.
Yeah. Well, so there you go. I stand corrected. That there are a couple of big ones in October, and there's some huge ones in November, December. But that's one route, is go do the tabling at big theater for Joker, for Maleficent, for Star Wars, for Frozen, or whatever the other big ones are. Oh, the Shining follow-up is also November 8th, although I'm not sure it's going to be a blockbuster, is The Big Sleep.
The other thing I might say on Frozen is the
Dr. Sleep. Sorry,
is the weekend before Black Friday. And if you do Frozen, and that's going to be big, and the type of movie theater you're at, especially if it's in a mall, you might do Frozen and that next weekend.
Oh, and by the way, Master Smith, you're right. It's October 4th.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to do Joker, you got to go get it set up like right now. And I do believe it's going to do huge numbers. Projected opening weekend Joker 2019. They're projecting a $90 million opening. So that's a big opening. 90 to 100 million. It's not.
If you are in Canada, then you just need to go through other routes to get into the movie theater.
Yeah, you probably go directly to the movie theater. Depends on what chain and what company and so forth. But okay, so
I was going to mention, you mentioned all these places that you can go to, but don't forget churches and schools. They're the ones that have a lot of these events. And the nice thing about that is what we've done is when we go to those and then become part of their events, then that opens the door to do other things with those organizations as well.
Oh, without a doubt. And by the way, this is one of the things that we're going to do at the next Quick Start meeting is we're going to go to a big live fair. It's the Harvest Festival, and see the setup and see the structure that the Westminster School uses. However, in the Facebook group, you can search booth, live event booth, movie theater booth, and there's tons of pictures in there as well. There's a whole section on the Quick Start member site on the right side that has booth setup and so forth. But again, I just wanted to touch upon this today, that there's massive marketing and promotional opportunities coming up with Halloween, fall harvest, October related things, and there's massive marketing opportunities coming up with holiday blockbusters, right? The fourth point, I guess, to make is there are a ton of, as Master Moody just said, there's a ton of elementary school associated, church associated, community organization associated, Halloween event. I mean, not Halloween, but also Thanksgiving, Christmas, holiday events. The last thing I will say is, coming up around the holidays, one of the biggest home runs we've also seen is renting a kiosk, high-end, relatively closed shopping mall. And that's, again, one of those where you can get in front of a herd of traffic Black Friday or from late November through Christmas. It's one of those things where you may be able to do that relatively inexpensively. It depends upon the mall and the city and the traffic they expect. But a big enclosed shopping mall, and generally they're dying, but they're all going to be hammered for the holidays, regardless of Amazon and everything else. And that's another thing where you can go out and you can do the normal live event booth structure, or you can sell holiday gift certificate packages for Christmas. So I've seen people sell, 200 packages in a weekend of pre-wrapped uniform in a package with a 1-month certificate that's designed to be given as a Christmas present, that then the kids come in for right after Christmas, starting in the new year.
And Master, Paul has, I think Paul has a live event or a couple live events coming up fairly soon. Paul, I did send you the forms that we use to fill out. You can do a variation of that, and also some pictures of what some of the booths look like. Obviously, when Ken went and did his and he got 300, it was probably the barest booth I've ever seen. He just had a couple things up because he didn't have time to get everything done, and he still got 300. So it was just following that format of having about a dozen clipboards so you don't have people waiting to fill out the stuff. And then you have somebody spinning a prize wheel. And I don't know if you have time to get the prize wheel or not, but they do overnight shipping on those, and you get them on Amazon. So it is possible if it's a Saturday, Sunday event. But just to give you some ideas, where is your live event, or do you have more than one coming up, Paul?
My live event is at a grade school. It's their fundraiser.
Perfect.
And we've done a number of live events in the past. We do the board break at the live event,
okay,
signing for permission.
And you have that permission slip to fill out. That now, are you making the appointment right there on the spot?
And in the past, the last thing I was doing was selling my trial for half off. I have had events where I've actually taken cash at the table, but I wasn't making the appointments. I'll be doing that this weekend.
You've got to make the appointment, and do have them all scheduled out there. So you already have them printed off, and you just say which day is best for you. And 90% of them are going to say, well, let me check my schedule and I'll get back to you. And the simple line you use is, well, we're filling up kind of quick, so we want to make sure we have a spot for you. So tentatively, what is normally the best day for you? And then if something comes up on that day, you can give us a call and we can reschedule it. So that way you get at least something down. Otherwise, you won't get hard. We've had some that didn't do that and said, well, I had 100 leads, but I only got 8 appointments. So you got to learn how to use that, overcoming that, and say, well, what would normally be the best day tentatively? Okay.
Good.
Yeah. And I don't love the board break as the thing. We've got a script that Bob's posted. You can look at the, what's it under, Bob? So they can look it up.
The live event promotion.
Live event promotion. So I don't love the board break.
Pull that up real quick, Bob, and we'll show, because that's helpful for everybody else too when you're doing those live events. So if you see here, Paul, on our member site, this is what it looks like, and
Yes, whatever.
you can see where he's going over there to find the live event. See in that column on the right, and then it'll pop up there. There it is, and it'll have a lot of that information. And that's the movie. Is the board breaking one in there?
Yeah, let's anchor in, Master Smith, what Master Moody just said. Paul, at the very least, I'd like you to get a prize wheel out there. And by adding in the prize wheel, again, Master Smith just said appropriately, you can go to Amazon and probably still get one this week, or you can go to a local party rental place and they'll have one that you could rent. What I'd like to anchor in for everybody is, one, as Master Smith said, Ken Gibson did the 220 appointments followed by 150 with a fairly minimalistic booth. I know our Westminster School every year at, they call it, I don't know, there's something at the Butterfly Pavilion that's a Halloween thing, and they don't even have room to set up anything but like a card table. But the prize wheel really helps and is more effective than the board break thing. If you have enough staff to also do the board break, great, do the board break. But I'd rather be queuing people up to fill out the form, spin the wheel, and make an appointment. Okay.
And I sent you a picture of the prize wheel so you see, because when you have a birthday party, a karate birthday party or karate pizza party, now you're getting an extra 10 to 20 new students coming off of one of those events. Everybody who spins the wheel gets 2 weeks of lessons free. So now it gives us an excuse to make the appointment. If they win one of the other little prizes, which are like water bottles or foam chucks or anything like that, a uniform, a t-shirt, they come by the school to pick those up when they come for that first orientation class on their 2-week free trial. So that's how you get a lot of people to come by the school, because they're picking up their prize there. They're also doing their orientation, and everybody who spins the wheel gets 2 weeks free plus whatever prize is on the wheel.
Yeah, well,
and that is on that member site that he just showed you, where the live event shows you how to do all that. And you will be picking up a lot more than the board breaking process.
Yeah, and if nothing else, there's going to be a percentage of people that you would have gotten otherwise who are intimidated by the idea of come break the board.
Absolutely.
You can still do the board breaking, but do have to have the prize.
Yeah, we said that.
And the rest of my sentence was, I personally am not a big fan of board breaking in context like that.
Yeah.
But the you can still do it if you want, but these examples of 220 appointments in 6 days and so forth, the primary driver is the prize wheel. Okay. Now there's two things to finish up, guys. One is the iPhone has a new update that just came out. If you didn't see the post that I put up, one of the neat features of the iPhone is a final knife in the heart of telemarketing, which is a feature where you can tell it to ignore all unknown numbers. Unknown meaning they're not already in your database as a contact. Okay. Now I want you to I've been telling everybody for years, what's happened as people have gone to mobile is most people don't answer a number they don't recognize. And for our purposes, it's extremely important to be able to get prospects and students on the phone. The solution to that, which Master Moody brilliantly brought up 2 or 3 years ago, is sharing the V card, meaning you create a contact record in your phone. At the point at which you make the appointment, you share that contact information by texting it over to them, and then walk them through here. Just touch this, hit add to contacts. Now, if you need to call us to reschedule, you've got the phone number. When you come down to the school, you can map it through Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever. And by the way, you have our email address and everything else. For a lot of systems, if they're an Android user and they're on Gmail, if they're an Apple user, and they are on Apple Mail, it'll also whitelist your emails. So it'll automatically not put it into the spam folder when it comes in as well, right? So it's very, very important. One, never do one of these live appointments or live events if it's at all possible without making appointments on the spot. Number two, always share that contact information. Now, if you get overwhelmed with volume, you can, later in the afternoon or whatever, you can text it over to each of the individuals with a little note of, great to meet you today. Here's our contact information. Some software packages, you can even automate that. However, I recommend trying to get the lead, make an appointment, and share that right at the point of contact, because it's getting more and more and more important, in fact, essential, to be in their Android or iPhone database right there in order to be able to contact them. Okay? And again, I can't overemphasize this enough. There's the whole do not call list and all that stuff that happened a few years ago. But now the big deal is spam cell phone calls. And even the Federal Communications Commission, in its government authorized effort to kill businesses, has told people don't answer phone numbers that you don't recognize. And admittedly, there's a lot of spam and there's a lot of fraudulent stuff going on. But what it does is, if you're not in their database, is it further kills that communication. So for everybody who's a current prospect, you could have somebody go through and share that now, how much compliance you'll get, I don't know. We don't have any stats on that. You could also go through and email that to people. But I'll tell you, if you're not in their phone database, you're going to have a hard time getting a hold of them.
And what we started doing, Master Oliver, is we tell them, because they filled out the slip, so we say, now we're going to send you a confirmation of your appointment. When our number comes in, if you could put that in your saved numbers under our name, and that way you'll know whenever we have to get in touch with you. And that way they know you're going to send them a text message with the confirmation, and then they'll put it in their saved phone with your name of your school.
Yeah, my suggestion is you text it to them right then and there, and then show them, here, hit this. Now say hit the contacts and do it right then and there.
Yeah, walk them through it, because if you say it, like, if I'm live with you, I'm going to walk you through it and make you add it to your phone. But if I'm video conferencing you, I'm going to go, oh yeah, and pick your, yeah, that's it. Let me see. And yeah, if you're on the phone, then you got to do it a little bit.
Is that an app or something? Is that a
No.
app?
Well, actually, it's easier than that. You just go to contacts, right?
I'm gonna share my phone with Ali now, or mine with Ali now.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Master Moody.
Well, I was gonna, but my new iPhone doesn't want to operate.
You just go to, if you're on an iPhone, which I don't have an Android here sitting on my desk because I hate all things Google. But if you're on an iPhone, you just hit the little plus up here to create a new contact. And then you create a contact record. And when you create the contact record, I would put, the program director's name, the full school name, the full mailing address, whatever email address or email addresses you use. If you have a landline, like, we used to always have 3 or 4 different phone numbers that would show up on caller ID. When I add the phone, I'll add all of those numbers, right? But whatever number that they might get called from, I'll add all of those numbers. And then you just...
I just sent it to Ali. And
Yeah.
Ali, you just got a text from me, and push on that one. Click on the text you got from me, and you have an Android, not an iPhone. And
That's
so
right.
when it pops up, because I know, because it didn't turn blue when I sent it to you. So click on that, and it should say something like add contact. And now you look frozen.
It just says Master Moody.
Yeah, it does. It's a link that you got sent.
Okay.
It'll look like a link, and click on it, and then click add when it pops up, click add contact.
Yeah, so
Right.
all you're doing is putting in their contact information. That's all. You don't need an app for it. You just send them the number and it comes up just like that.
Well, you're sending them a file. You're sending them a little file by text. And then when they click on the
Right.
file, your phone recognizes that, and then they can add it to their contact. What Master Oliver's saying is the file you send them, populate with as much stuff as possible. So if that was my school, which is what you're going to send them, I put in even more stuff than Master Oliver's talking about. I put an anniversary and a birth date in it, so that once a year, if they've triggered their system to recognize birthdays and anniversaries, you know, it pings them to say, hey, the karate school's anniversary.
Can you show them that? Can you share your screen and show them that file that you're sending? So that
Well,
way,
it's not on his Zoom screen, so no. But we could.
Well,
But-
it is actually.
But what?
I could-
Oh, is it? Well, okay.
Well, I mean, I could pull it up. Yeah, it's if you look at my contact record for let's see here. I have so many.
But see, all you're doing, Ollie, is you're creating a robust contact, just like any new contact in your phone. And then on your phone, again, I'm more conversant in iOS than in Android, but there should be something in there that says share contact.
So this
right?
has like all the different phone numbers. So we
Yeah,
have, you know, there's the line 1, line 2, this mobile and headquarters, all these are the different text lines that might come in. There's the
Right.
school number. This is one that some of the autoresponders come in on. That's Master Sam. This is my old one. I actually send an updated one. So this is an older one because it should say Master Sanborn.
Yeah.
That's one of the instructors' numbers. That's one website. That's another website. That's Facebook page. That's the birthday, anniversary. And then in the notes, it has the cross streets too. Also has a photo. So if they put this in an iPhone, when I call them, it's gonna pop up with the name, with our full name, and it's gonna pop up with a photo of the school. So if you
Okay.
add this to your phone, if I got you to add this into your phone and you have an iPhone, it might, in some Androids, it'll happen too. The school picture is gonna come up, and if you drove over there and you hadn't been there yet, you'd know what it looked like.
Mhm. Right. Thank you.
Okay, so again, and by the way, if you haven't done this with all of your students, it's probably a good effort to go through and
Yeah,
spend a week to do this with all of your students, because you don't want to be trying to call them to confirm them for the testing or to set a renewal appointment or anything else. And you can do that in a number of ways, but certainly at the point of contact for a live event, while you're on the phone for an info call, while they're standing in front of you on a walk-in. And I wouldn't do it later. I would do it right then and there, if at all possible, because you want to walk them through. Here, click that, say, create new contact. That'll add it to your contacts, and now you have us in there, right? So that's an important component of that.
Right. Great.
It is very important. Otherwise, you're just going to end up in a situation where people's, your phone calls go directly to voicemail. Before long, it'll probably just route you to, we don't know who you are, go away, some message.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. We're about 15 minutes over our time limit here. I will remind everybody the quick start meeting coming up. Joseph is smirking because he knows that's a common occurrence. The quick start meeting coming up in Evergreen, Colorado and vicinity. Make sure you're set for that, and or the more advanced members, the behind the scenes of the black belt test.
Come in, and just to clarify, Master Oliver, they should be flying in on Thursday afternoon and go right from the airport right to the Thornton School. It's on the way to where you're going to send them, where their hotel information is that they can get from Bob, and go to the Thornton School, and by 5 o'clock, they'll be there doing, and what the behind the scenes is for those that haven't been or know what that means. It's kind of showing you all these systems that we're talking about, all the paperwork material, from the character worksheets and the enrollment folder, and get to see the live classes where they're pre-framing people for black belt. You get a chance to see the different color uniforms and how they structure the class, how they hand out the character worksheet stripes, all of that behind the scenes. That's what we call behind the scenes. You actually get to sit on the side there, and I'm usually there to go through all that with everybody and kind of explain what's going on, to kind of give you a little overview to help you get those systems in place at your school. And then Friday morning, we'll start at Master Oliver's, and then he has a full agenda for that weekend, going from getting to see how the tournament is used for pre-framing people for black belt leadership training, to going to an actual live event that we have, so you can see how they're capturing all those leads and doing that whole process at a live event. So it's a full weekend, guys. If you haven't been to one, it accelerates your learning cycle at least 3 to 6 months on learning how to do a bunch of this stuff. Plus, we get to answer a lot of questions for you face to face and share a lot of information. So it's a must-come event. It doesn't matter if you've been here, 1 week or 6 months. If you haven't been, you need to be there.
Yeah, and as a final note, one of the things that we were going to do today, but we will start next week, is we're going to be going back to basics for some portion of this meeting. So info call, walk-in, confirming the appointment, greeting a first intro structure, rescheduling the first intro, confirming second intro, enrollment prep, enrollment conference, etc., and doing each week one of those segments. One of the things that Master Moody pointed out, but I was already there as well, is through Go to Karate, when they're doing people's websites, one of the things they do very importantly is set up a phone line where you can record the calls coming in. And Master Moody, you were saying the observation of even some of our members are the quality of those incoming calls being handled wasn't stellar.
That's about right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we want to go through kind of A to Z.
And I think Dervish found that out too.
Yes. I will note, and we'll state the obvious. Doesn't matter how good you are at handling a phone call if you don't answer your phones. And what I found out through many years of keeping track of the numbers, soccer moms calling for their kid seem to be in one of two routines. 2 working parents, mom takes the kid to school, goes to work, checks in on her work functions, goes through her checklist, and then calls about the karate lessons and whatever else is on her list. Non-working mom drops the kids off at school, sits down, goes through her checklist and calls. Therefore, most of the calls that we got for kids were somewhere between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. in the morning. And I find a huge percentage of martial arts schools don't answer their phone at all at that hour. And if they think that having an automated voicemail is adequate. I would prefer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a human being answers their phone, your phone. And I would prefer from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday through Saturday, that a human being that's directly on your payroll answers the phone. We recommend, we've got a good live answering service that I recommend called Pat Live. But
I wanted to congratulate Troy Dorsey. He started, he has his price point up and he's getting the full down payment now that, some of the members were concerned about. And I think if my number's right, this was even last week, he had 14 enrollments already with the new down payment and, first month's tuition. So congratulations on that, Troy.
After what was admittedly a rough start on the new price points.
No problem.
Okay.
All right, guys.
I don't think Troy's on here with us, is he?
He is.
Oh, okay. There he is. I see Troy. Good. Well done, Troy. Okay. Everybody have a great afternoon. Any questions for follow-up? And hopefully there's a bunch. post them in the Facebook group today, and we'll get right back to you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys. Thanks.